Hello and welcome to Haunted Montreal's Spooky Story Sessions. I'm your host, Holly Rhiannon, and today I'm going to tell you all about Place Jésuites. With over 350 documented ghost stories, Montreal is easily the most haunted city in Canada, if not all of North America. Haunted Montreal is dedicated to researching these paranormal tales, and our channel brings you a new video in both French and English every second Saturday. However, we will be taking our customary month off in July, so this will be our last story time until August 5th. That being said, we may have a little surprise for you in July that takes a different direction from our usual videos, so just keep an eye out. Today's video examines Place Jacques Cartier, an idyllic location for tourists to have a meal, enjoy some live busking, or get a caricature drawn. That being said, this public place has a very dark history, whereby Jesuit priests and their henchmen tortured and executed Indigenous people from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy when the space was known as Place Jésuites during the colonial New France era. But before we get into today's story, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you get notified every time we have a new tale to share. And if you're already subscribed, a big thank you, welcome back, we are so happy to see you here. Now without further ado, let's get spooky. Often teeming with tourists, today's Place Jacques Cartier has a very dark history. Allegedly, the popular public square is haunted, and if that is the case, it is with very good reason. In 2016, an American tourist had a frightening encounter with the ghost who is said to haunt the square. He was returning to his hotel in Old Montreal after spending a few hours in the village having dinner and drinks when he decided to pass through the historic Place Jacques Cartier. At around 1 a.m., he stopped at Nelson's column at the top of the square to study the stone engravings of warships at the base of the monument. As he was peering at the maritime images, he suddenly heard what sounded like mumbling in Latin, a language that he had studied briefly in high school in New York State. Trying to determine where the strange sound was coming from, he circled the pillar, keeping his back to it, to look for the source. As he peered around the area, suddenly he noticed something bright and red coming from the Place Vauclin to the north. As he looked closer, it appeared as though a shadowy, translucent figure holding something red hot in his hand was approaching. Shocked and terrified, as the apparition got closer, he could now see that it was clad in a black robe and holding what appeared to be a large crucifix that seemed as though it had just come out of an iron forge. It was glowing as though red hot. As the strange ghost approached the man, it lifted the burning crucifix. The tourist decided to run back to his hotel. However, his legs would not move as he was paralyzed with fear. The ghost picked up its pace and seemed to be coming directly towards the man in an aggressive manner. Frozen, the man tried to scream for help, but nothing came out. He stared in horror as the ghost approached him, still holding up this red-hot crucifix. It was then that the tourist realized this was the apparition of a priest. When the ghost was a mere few feet away, he could see a deranged grin on his face. The apparition stared at him and within seconds lunged forward with the crucifix still in front of him. The man finally was able to let out a blood-curdling scream. As he cried out, a woman who was crossing the square asked him if he was okay. Drenched in sweat, with his heart pounding, the tourist was startled as though he had just been awoken from a nightmare, and the ghostly priest was no longer there. Now, the man rushed back to his hotel, immediately checked out, and drove back to New York State that very night. Place Jacques Cartier has a dark history associated with this haunting. Jesuit priests and their followers tortured and executed Indigenous peoples in this square during the colonial era of New France. The area, known as Tiohtià:ke, was a significant Mohawk trade center for thousands of years. When the French began colonizing the region in the 1600s, they aimed to convert the indigenous population to Roman Catholicism, particularly through the efforts of the Jesuits. This religious zeal led to conflict with the powerful Haudenosaunee Confederacy, consisting of 5 First Nations, including the Mohawks. Warfare and introduction of European diseases caused Mohawks to flee Tiohtià:ke, seeking safety in other parts of their territory. Taking advantage of this situation, the ultra-Catholic organization called the Notre Dame Society of Montreal for the Conversion of the Savage Peoples of New France established a colony called Ville Marie on the island in 1642. This triggered a war between the French colonists and the Kanien'kehá:ka First Nation, which lasted until 1701. On May 18, 1642, Ville Marie was founded with a Catholic ceremony led by Jesuit Father Vimont. The Jesuits have a troubling history, particularly regarding discussions of cultural genocide. The Jesuit movement, founded by Ignatius de Loyola in 1534, focused on converting others to Catholicism. Their religious philosophy, seen as deranged by modern standards, involved vows of poverty and chastity, and a determination to convert others to their faith at any cost. For one example, in the Jesuit Relations and Allied Documents, Travels and Explorations of the Jesuit Missionaries in New France 1610 to 1791, a chapter is devoted to the burning and torture of Indigenous people. The Jesuits wrote that burning people alive who had refused to convert to Catholicism or otherwise offended the priests was the surest way for them to reach heaven. From the chapter, "So sure are they that we have scarcely even seen an Iroquois burned without regarding him as on the way to paradise, nor have we considered a single one as certainly on that road, whom we have not seen pass through this torture. Before their torments, these prisoners are duly instructed and baptized by the Jesuits. The wolf is changed all at once into a lamb, and enters the fold of Jesus Christ, which he came to ravage." As Ville Marie grew, the Jesuits bought the land located north of Rue Notre Dame in 1692. The parcel was 646 feet in front and 120 feet deep, with a view of the sloping land leading to the river. The Jesuits built a monastery for themselves and named the area Place Jésuites. Gruesome torture, execution, and genocide were all hallmarks of the space in front of their monastery. In one such episode, in 1696, 4 members of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy were tied to stakes and tortured with hot irons until they perished. To this date, historians have not yet compiled how many Indigenous people were tortured and murdered on the Place de Jésuites. Following the British conquest of 1760, the Jesuits began to fall out of favor. In 1773, Pope Clement XIV encouraged the British authorities to seize the Jesuit residence and to build a courthouse instead. The Jesuits were officially banished and were only allowed to return to Quebec in 1842. Today, the Pope of the Catholic Church is a Jesuit. Whether or not Pope Francis has atoned for these gruesome Jesuit crimes from the past is unknown. Whatever the case, it's always a good idea to think twice before crossing the Place Jacques Cartier late at night when the ghostly Jesuit priest is known to make his appearance. Are you a Montreal resident or perhaps a tourist who has encountered something strange near Place Jacques Cartier? If so, we would love to know. As always, we want to hear your theories about what could be going on. Thank you so much for stopping by. If this is your first video, we do hope you'll stick around for the next one. We post videos in both French and English every second Saturday. And just a reminder again that we will be off for the month of July, but may have a little surprise for you within that month anyway, so keep an eye out. If you'd like to learn more about the organization founded by the talented Donovan King, it's all listed in the description down below, along with links to purchase tickets to in-person haunted storytelling tours. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We will see you in August, or maybe a little bit before, but until then, stay spooky.